Thank you. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manomishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupada Mahyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivata Padgamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Tam Sadivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamatam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Peshraya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namne Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunvadi Pasat Desatarane Vancha Kalpadrubhasya Kripa Sindhu Vevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurtase Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenbandhu Jagtpate Gopsa Gopya Ganta Radha Kanta Namaste तत्कांचन गौरांगी श्रादे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नीलाचंद्रमासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्याम जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। संसार नाम So we are supposed to start with chapter number 7 today. So okay. So please give a quick revision of the last Saturday, as we had Rath Yatra last week and got recording today only. Okay. So in the previous class, we were discussing about how Narad Muni was sharing his own realization. His own realization about why there has to be direct scripture which glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he tells his own realization from his own life that how by directly speaking about Krishna Katha, one can cross over the ocean of birth and death very, very easily. So he just met with the Bhaktivedantas for 4 months. Then he didn't meet them again. After that, his mother died. There was a great calamity in life. Then he headed towards the north. He went through various mines and different places of pleasure and the places of misery also. But later on, he was meditating on the Lord. After meditating on the Lord, he got the darshan of the Lord within his heart. He went into ecstasy by seeing the Lord. Lord said that you will not get me just now because your bhakti is still incomplete. And not only accepts it, he becomes very eager now to get darshan of the Lord. And after getting darshan of the Lord, so he was very eager to get darshan of the Lord. And then he follows the instruction of the Lord until death by glorifying the Supreme Lord everywhere. And then at the end of the millennia, he leaves this mortal body. He gets the body of his complete perfection as Narada, who has no gross and subtle coverings. And then he becomes a liberate spaceman. He moves here and there. And constantly he has been chanting the glories of the Lord and the names of the Lord since then. And then he tells us the essence of his teachings. Etaddi atur chittana matra sparsesayamo bhav sindhu plavo haricharyanuvarnana. So matra etaddi atur chittana. So those whose chitta or consciousness is very eager for what? Matra sparse chayamu. So matra means basically sense objects. And sparsa means to come in contact with sense objects. Means those whose senses are shouting to touch the sense objects. So for such people also, they can cross over this Bhav Sindhu, the ocean of birth and death, by a plava. Plava means basically boat. And what is that boat? Hari Charya Anuvarnanam. Constantly glorifying the name, form, qualities, passion for the Lord. So that was the essence of his teachings. And then he tells him That's why write a scripture glorifying the Supreme Lord. But that has given me satisfaction, that will give you also satisfaction. And that will give satisfaction to the readers also. And in this way, after sharing his realization, Narad Muni goes away from there. So that was the essence of our previous class. And after Narad Muni goes back, what happens to Vyasdev? We will discuss it today. I'll just share the PPT of chapter 7 with all of you. And then we'll just discuss first 12 verses from the PPT. So just tell that. So this chapter number 7 is called Son of Drona Punished. The first 12 verses, which we will be discussing, talks about Vyasadev's meditation after hearing from Narad Muni and teaching Srimad Bhagavatam to his own son, Sukadeva Goswami, because he wanted to give the essence of what he has experienced to his own son. And then verse number 13 to 17, they go in the episode of Aswathama. So they talk about death of sons of Pandavas and the lamentation. Then the battle between Arjuna and Aswathama. After that, how Arjuna offers prayers to the Lord, being bewildered by the Brahmastra of Aswathama. And then he releases his Brahmastra also. And Krishna responds to the prayers. Then we will discuss about how Arjuna arrests Aswathama. And then the rest of the verses are about arguments, differences in opinion. So amidst pure devotees also there is a difference in opinion, and how Arjuna is going to resolve that. So Krishna would be supporting Aswathama in few verses, and Yudhishthira Maharaj says no, Draupadi says no, Bhima says you should, as usual. And then Krishna requests Arjuna to resolve the whole issue, and Arjuna passes the test. And then there is a discussion about Vam Swabhava. Vam Swabhava means the feminist nature of Draupadi. And then after that, there's agreement and disagreement with the Draupadi, whether Aswathama should be punished or not punished. And then Lord intervenes and Arjuna takes an action. So that's the summary of this chapter number 7. But we will be discussing only first 12 verses in this particular class, today's class, because it is more relevant to the episode which is going on. So now we'll directly go to the verses. 1.7, Son of Drona Punished. So first 3 verses talk about Vyasadev's meditation and samadhi. So somebody can read the text number 1.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please.
Rishi Saunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do?
Yeah. So then the question comes from Saunak Rishi. Okay, he got the counseling from his guru, but then what did he do after that? So what did he do after that? Please read 2nd and 3rd.
Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shyama Prasad, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Text 3. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Hare Krishna.
So Brahmanadyam Saraswatyam. So Brahmanadyam. So Brahmanadya can also mean the spiritual river, because around Saraswati there are a lot of hermitages of many sages. But Brahmanadya can also mean the river of the Vedas. So Vedas is like river, and a lot of philosophies in Vedas. So in that sense, allegorically, like Vyasadeva is now going to meditate on the essence of the Vedas. And Brahmanadam can also mean the Brahmanas. Brahmanadam can mean the austerity, river of austerities. So there can be different meanings. So he's going to basically meditate and find the essence now in the bank of river Saraswati. And in that ashram, Badri Sand Mandite. There is a grove of Badri trees where Vyasadeva sat down. Because it is around the same place where Badrinath is also there. Nana and Rishi, they also meditated on the same place. So he performed Asman and then he started reflecting in his mind. Because it was instruction of Narada only that you should meditate on the pastimes of the Lord continuously. So following the order of his spiritual master, now he starts remembering the pastimes of the Lord. So thus he sat and concentrated using his mind. He was concentrating mind following the order of his spiritual master. Now previously also, I think it is in the beginning of 4th chapter. No, at the end of 4th chapter. So there also Vyasadeva was meditating, and here also Vyasadeva is meditating. But then we'll see the difference in realization. And then after that, we'll do some exercise also. So before going to exercise, we'll just see the differences in realization, which he had before and which he's having now. So we'll go to text number 4. Bhakti yogena manasi.
Bhakti yogena manasi.
Samyak pranihite amale.
Samyak pranihite amale.
Apasyata purusam purnam.
Apasyata purnam.
Mayam cha tadapasrayam.
Mayam cha tadapasrayam.
Please read translation and the purport.
Thus, he fixed his mind perfectly, engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus, he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control.
Which verse you are reading, Mustari?
Oh, sorry, Prabhuji, I opened the chapter 4th as you said.
Oh, no. It's chapter 7. 1.7.
You have to scroll the screen.
Okay. Is it not visible, Maharaj, in that mind which was undisturbed?
No, no problem.
Okay. I thought it is visible. Just a minute. Okay.
Now,
Yes. So there was some lag there. Now you can read. Please read.
This chapter 7 verse?
Chapter 7 verse 4.
4th one. Yeah, I read the same. Thus, he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus, he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control.
Please read purport also.
Purport: perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth personality of Godhead only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahm or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narad advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahm because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. In the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayana Patrena veil of impersonal Brahm. And when the curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha or person. The absolute personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. The absolute personality of Godhead is the perfect person. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the eternal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word Apsharyam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is spiritual, Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are Atmaraman or fixed in trance take shelter of this Maya or internal energy. Devotional service or Bhakti Yoga is the function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy. Just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light, such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahm. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahm effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Param Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare. So we find here that Vyasadeva is basically, he got darshan of Apasyatam Purusam Purnam. Purnam is complete form of the Lord. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that how, as in complete moon, when there is complete moon, full moon, all different phases of the moon, moon on Pratipat, then Ekadasi, Dwadasi, Triyodasi, any moon, all moons are there within the full moon, moon of Purnima. Similarly, as soon as one gets darshan of the Supreme Lord, automatically one gets darshan of Paramatma, various Narayan forms, different energies of the Lord, like internal energy, external energy, and everything. And that's why just by that meditation, he got all the realization to write out everything which he has explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, the discussion of Virat Purusha, the discussion of the external energy of the Lord, internal energy of the Lord, different Paramatmas, especially first 5 cantos discuss about creation, maintenance, and destruction of this world. Various Narayan forms are there. So in that meditation, he got realization of everything, and that is what he explains in Srimad Bhagavatam in all 12 cantos. So that was his result of his meditation. Now what we'll do is, we'll break group and devotees into two groups. And what you have to do, we can take this verse, verse number 4, and we can see it in contrast with 1.4.15 and 16. So it's like, if I just write the contrast in the chat box. So we have to contrast this particular verse 1.7.4 and 1.4.15.16. So both the places are meditations. So we can look at the various aspects. Various aspects like, what was the motive of Vyasadeva? We can see the type of meditation, type of realization, etc. And we can make this maybe a sort of table or something, and see the differences in the types of meditation. And if we can bring out some lessons from that, why there are some differences, we can see the similarities also. And if we can bring some about lessons from that, that would be even better. So these two verses are there in the chat box, 1.4.15.16 and 1.7.4. So this is like a work for discussion. So I'll just break the devotees into two groups, and we can do the same work. So I'll just do the room breakout. So devotee can just join it, and you have 10 minutes to discuss, maybe more, 15 minutes. 15 minutes to discuss, and you can come up with the question. Hari Hari. So devotees are back. So can we request someone from group number 1 to present?
Hare Krishna. So we noted down certain differences, similarities, and lessons learned. So first of all, I'll read the differences. This is from the 4th chapter, text 15 and 16. The differences were from the 4th chapter that in the 4th chapter, the meditation done by Vyasadeva was without having consulted his spiritual master. Vyasadeva focused on the future and he had the vision of anomalies due to influence of time. Yet he was still interested in matter. Although the meditation was in the liberated stage, as a result of which he could compile the Vedas, and his focus was more or less on Varnashram. And the result of all this endeavor was dissatisfaction. Now coming to lesson 7th, the differences are he meditated after having consulted his spiritual master Narada Muni. The object of meditation was Krishna. He had the vision of the Supreme Lord with his external energies. Now here he was interested in transcendence, and that was the perfection of his meditation. It was free from the influence of the material modes, and it was the perfection of his devotion. Following that, he could compile Srimad Bhagavatam, and the result was satisfaction in the heart. The similarities which we noted were, in both the cases, he could see the future, and Prabhupada writes in the purport, they can see the past also. So he was kind of a Trikalagya. And he was interested in welfare of people in general. And interestingly, the spot of meditation was very, very peaceful. Although it was not the same, but it was very, very peaceful and conducive to these sort of activities. The lessons we learnt were, without devotional service, welfare work isn't satisfactory. The point of repetition and absorption that is mentioned by Narada Muni. So it is very important that we become absorbed in the practices that we do, our spiritual practices, Shravanam Kirtanam, and following the instructions of the spiritual master leads to satisfaction. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So we like to express our gratitude to this group by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
We have systematically presented all the points, differences, similarities, lessons. Group number
Prabhuji, just I wanted to add one point. I think Prabhuji mentioned, although the place of meditation was not same, but I felt it is mentioned as same place only, right? Samprasya.
Same place.
Yes, it is Bank of Saraswati in both the cases.
Bank of River, because in here also in 1.7.2, Sri Sutta Goswami says on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shamya Prasya, which enlivens the transcendental. And here when we come to 1.4, 15 and 16, I think the same word Samprasya is used.
In the purport is same. Yes.
Same, okay.
Yes, same.
One is very clear, is Bank of Saraswati. Now west
of Saraswati.
Yeah. So Bank of Saraswati is clear. Other things.
Well, the bank might be very long. We don't know whether it was the same spot.
Anyway.
Oh, baby. No, actually in the purport Prabhupada writes, so the place indicated here is Shamya Prasya in Badrika Ashram, where Sri Vyasadeva is residing. In 1.4.15, Prabhupada writes about that and sat alone to concentrate. So that's why I specifically stress that the same place, because in his cottage he was meditating. That's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, the same place. It will be the same spot or not, we are not sure. And it doesn't matter.
I mentioned about the place.
We are not sure whether it was same Kusagras and the same spot, but not worried about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare.
I think one more request, Prabhuji has made very nice elaborated points. So if we can just put it into the chat window for everybody, I think it is a very nicely illustrated one. So one request to Prabhuji, he made the notes. If we can post it either in the group or in later on, just a small request.
I think if you post to me also, it would be good.
Yeah, so everybody.
Very beautifully compiled.
Yeah, very nicely illustrated actually.
Thank you. So now group number 2 would be presented. Group 2.
Chittara Krishna Babu, you unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, our discussion was on these verses and similarities and differences and the conclusion. So, mainly the similarity was he was meditating and he was meditating on the bank of Saraswati and he was meditating for the welfare of the whole world. But the differences, and also he saw the external energy, it was also a similarity. But the differences were like at that time he was sitting alone, and in this later on he was in link with the devotional service of the Lord. So there he was focused on materialism. He was seeing the problems only, but here he saw the source of everything, Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as he control. So these were the differences. Like he was more of a yogi there, but here he was a bhakti yogi. He was in touch with the Lord. So the conclusion we could draw that we should do the things under the instruction of an authority. Second, we should be more focused on our spiritual practice in devotional service. Then the problems will be there because we are in the material world, but they will be under control. Thank you, Prabhuji. Maharaj, you may add something.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. He saw the material world before and after, but as he is seeing the Lord, but he's under control. Problem is there and after also, both time. But when you're doing devotional service, the problem is controlled by the Lord.
Later on, he got a solution. Earlier, he's solving the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we like to thank this group also by chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Thank you. So devotees came with beautiful points. I will just request if devotees can maybe write it down somewhere, and you can send me also. So why we did this exercise is because certainly certain problems like that comes in devotees' life also. It has a great application. So because we stay in the material world, anomalies come in our life also. So whether we are inside the institution or outside the institution, somebody a congregation devotee or a brahmachari or anyone, but problems come everywhere. But if we remember that the solution is to be focused in our own sadhana and perform devotion service, then we can also get satisfaction despite being surrounded by the problems everywhere. Like we find amidst the devotees also. Can you give example of devotees? I know a lot of examples will come. Example of devotees who were surrounded by a lot of problems, yet they were satisfied.
Prahlad.
Yeah, Prahlad. Yes. Diksha Maharaj. Yeah, whose name? Pandavas, yes. Pandavas practically whole life they were surrounded by problems.
Amrish Maharaj.
Amrish Maharaj about to die.
Srivas Thakur's son was dying, but he was concerned for the satisfaction of the Lord is dancing in the Srivas Sangam.
Yes. So Srivas Thakur, son was about to die. Prabhupada life also, yes. Prabhupada's life.
Kolavechar Sridhar.
Kolavechar Sridhar. Everybody was miserable except him. People were miserable by seeing him, but he was very satisfied. They was throw sabji in his house, say, keep quiet. But he was very satisfied. So practically seeing, if we see all the personalities in Bhagavatam, their episodes are filled with calamities. But then, despite being in so many calamities, they were so satisfied and they were so happy. And that is what we learn in the beginning of episode itself. So many times, suddenly it's not for the devotees like devotees sitting here, but new devotees, many times they have expectation because just we came to Krishna consciousness, problems have to be solved. There won't be any problems. But problems won't be solved. We can transcend the problems by accepting Krishna consciousness. So problems will always be there. Like recently, Maharaj was also there in our Rath Yatra. So one Mataji was there. She lost her son 10 years ago. So he didn't came back. So every day she would come to our pandal and tell me that now you pray to Jagannath that my son comes back. Every time hearing Katha. So I expect that no, my son who was lost 10 years back, I should get him now. So just to satisfy her, I would tell, okay, I'll pray. But then I was thinking within the mind that at least when seeing darshan of Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, she has to understand that Subhadra also lost her son, Abhimanyu. So many times people don't see all these things. Ayodhya was a very peaceful place till Lord Ram came. Vrindavan was a very peaceful place till Krishna came. After Krishna came, every day there would be so many demons. So bhakti is not about resolving the problems, bhakti is about transcending the problems. So only when we take proper shelter of bhakti, we get absorbed in bhakti, then we can get satisfaction within, and that can help us to transcend the problems. Problems will always be there. So there's something which we can learn from this episode of Vyasadev's meditation previously and after meeting Narada Muni. Now we'll go to the next text number 5. Okay, Chitta Hari Krishna.
Though I was feeling, share, like, is this the difference between material education and spiritual education? The material education always focuses on solving the problem, adjusting the things. And spiritual education teaches that problems will be there, but you raise your consciousness above them. Like that.
Yeah. It is perfect, actually. Because in material education, we just want to counteract the problems and we want to increase the sense gratification. Korvanti pati, what is that? Sukhan mannate grahi. Dukh pratikaram. Korvanti dukh pratikaram sukhan mannate grahi. So a person who is materialistic, basically talking about materialistic householders, so they think if we are able to do pratikar, we are able to solve this problem, that problem, that problem, that problem everywhere, then we are like satisfied. But main thing is not, we can't solve the problems, we have to transcend the problems. So many times we find like all the research work is all about that. We want to create ACs, fans and so many other things just to counteract the miseries, threefold miseries. But in bhakti, we talk about transcending. So it's like, do the needful to survive, keep the body and soul together, and at the same time utilize that time to transcend the problems. So that is more of a spiritual education. So that focus is good. Thank you. Yes, Dhananjay Prabhu.
Hey Krishna Prabhuji. So does it mean, as you said, that whenever the Lord comes and the Leela starts and then all kind of problems happens, and then he, by example, he is giving a solution. So normally if we are in a material world, we are facing the material problem and we are finding a material solutions. But once we become a devotee, then we have a a transcendental problem, and those transcendental problem, for finding a solutions, transcendental solutions, you have by force, you have got no choice but to go to the Lord, because transcendental problem can be only solved with the mercy of the Lord. So that means that when you are in material world, we are every day we are giving a material test and we are getting embroiled into it. But when we become a devotee, then we start facing a spiritual test, and then our teacher is the Chaitya or the Lord himself, and that is, so we are, both the cases we are facing the test, but these tests are of different degree. One is material and another one is transcendental problem. So can we understand this way, Prabhuji?
Yeah. Even after coming to devotion service, we do have material problems also. And material problems also, we do it beautifully. We try to solve them as much as possible. But we have to remember that ultimate solution is to transcend it. So ultimately, we have to transcend.
So that means in case of devotees, the problems get multiplied. So earlier, when you are in material world, you have only material problem. Now you have material plus transcendental problem also. So that's why for God realizance means that we have to have a more problem and more complicated problem rather than only the routine mundane material problem. So can we understand it that way?
Yeah, you must have variety changes. Variety in the sense that you get now problems of spiritual life in the sense that, like now, one of our devotees, he was sleeping in the company early in the morning. So then his friends were asking, hey, why are you sleeping in the company? So he said, what to do? No, we have to get up at 4 o'clock. We have to attend Mangal Aarti. That's why I was sleeping in company. And then his friend said, that's why we get up at 7 o'clock. So seems that no, devotees are more problem. And then you have problem in japa, problem in getting absorbed in the Bhagavatam, practice of Krishna consciousness. These are spiritual problems. So these problems, variety increases. But apart from that, we also see that as the time passes, devotees also transcend the problems. Things change. It's not the same. Outsiders we have seen, little bit things are here and there, they become so much disturbed. I personally, myself also, I became 10 minutes late for my ITJ exam because my footwear broke. So as you were wearing my footwear and it broke. So I went 10 minutes late for ITJ exam. Which is like now 2 hours I have the exam and each minute is so important. And now, no, whether footwear is here, there, lost, it doesn't matter so much. So things will change for devotees. So then maybe higher problems come, but main thing is despite all the problems, we have to learn to be satisfied. Understanding the temporary nature of the world. Like Pandavas also, there's an episode in Mahabharata where once Narada Muni tells to Pandavas that what did you get by worshipping this Krishna? Since childhood, you had to undergo so many troubles. So then Narada Muni was laughing, Pandavas were laughing, and then they said that you understand. So what they meant is, that although externally there are so many problems, but despite those so many problems, because we are Krishna conscious, we are so satisfied. So that satisfaction from within helps the devotees to transcend the problems. So although externally there will be so many problems. So there will be more problems externally, but internally devotees are more happy. Like I remember once one devotee in Mumbai, there was a flood. So he lost his house, he lost his shop, everything was gone. And all devotees were like feeling so sorry about him. So when he came to temple and devotees were telling, oh, you lost your, no, all the things in the home were washed off, shop was washed off. And he was satisfied. He was saying, Sar salamat to pagdi hajar. Sar salamat to pagdi hajar. If your head is okay, then anyway so many crowns will come. So at least this body is there, my bead bag is there, I can chant nicely, I am very happy. Money has gone, money will come back. So that our devotees many times Outside people feel they are miserable, but they are happy. Thank you, Narendra.
Thank you.
Some dude had some more questions. They are not there now. Okay, Parthasarthi.
Yes, Prabhu, we had the answer now.
You had the answer now. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Parthasarthi Mataji.
Can you hear?
We can hear you. Yes.
I did a course on the first canto, and I heard that Vyasadeva had actually written the Srimad Bhagavatam already. Have you heard that, Prabhu? But he hadn't emphasized the process of devotional service, but he had written it. Would you be able, because I've mentioned that, and people have questioned that, had he actually written the Srimad Bhagavatam when he had compiled the Vedas? But he hadn't emphasized devotional service, but he had written about the pastimes of Krishna. Have you heard that, Prabhu?
Actually, I'm not very sure of it. But one thing is very clear is that he didn't write the scripture. Maybe I'll mute you, then maybe later you can unmute so that dudes can hear. Yeah. So one thing is very clear that certainly he had knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, but he didn't write exclusive glorification of the Lord before. That's very clear. So whether he had written Srimad Bhagavatam before, later on he mended it, whatever it may be, we are not very sure. But one thing is very clear that he didn't exclusively wrote the glorification of the Lord before, which he wrote later on. So that's very clear. Also, Srimad Bhagavatam is glorified because pastimes of the Lord has a great blend of philosophy also. So generally, we find Upanishads, which are only philosophy. So Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. So these all are having a lot of philosophy. Similarly, we find Puranas having a lot of pastimes. But Srimad Bhagavatam, we find a blend of both pastimes as well as philosophy. So that is how Bhagavatam is a bit special as compared to other scriptures. And also in other places, everywhere you will find something. Like in some way, some Puranas, even Puranas of mode of goodness, we will find the knowledge of Ausadhi somewhere, different herbs. Some places we will find the description more of hellish planets and reincarnation, all these things, like in Garun Puran. But Bhagavatam, from beginning till end, focuses on devotional service. So that is how Srimad Bhagavatam is very special as compared to other Puranas. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hare. So now we'll go to the next verse, text number 5. Also in the previous verse, text number 4, what written was Mayam cha tad apasrayam. That means Maya was seen different from Supreme Lord. Rather, Prabhupada writes behind the Supreme Lord. That is just to emphasize that Maya is different, because Mayavadis, as far as they are concerned, they don't differentiate between the spiritual energy and material energy of the Lord. So for them, Shankaracharya says there's no difference between Pradhan and Brahman. Only Vaishnava discriminate between the Pradhan and the Brahman. Another difference between the Shankarites and Vaishnavas is we talk about energetic, whereas Shankarites just talk about energy. Apart from that, most of the things are same. These are the very typical differences between Shankarites and the Vaishnavas. So we see that different energies, material and spiritual. Shankarites say both are same. So we find that there is a difference, because he saw Lord and Maya just behind it. So both were different, they are not same. So this particular verse proves the Vaishnava philosophy, or establishes the Vaishnava philosophy. And certainly Shankarites don't believe in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one of the reasons. They just can't misinterpret it. Okay, we had some hand raise. Rati Prada Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, it is mentioned, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned the meaning of apashrayam as under full control. And in purport also he has explained that the same thing, that apashrayam means that external energy was under full control. But in Subodhini it is mentioned that apashrayam means separate, shelter behind the Lord.
So that separate is given by actually Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Okay.
So Vishwanath Thakur has made it very clear that it is separate, it's not the same. And anyway, in both interpretation, whether by Vishwanath Thakur or by Prabhupada, it establishes a Vaishnava principle that it's two, it's not one. Lord is different, Lord's material energy is different. So when Prabhupada writes under full control, because Mayavadis say that Maya controls even the Supreme Lord. Brahman, controlled by mode of goodness, turns into incarnations, according to their philosophy. Brahman, controlled by mode of passion, turns into living entities. Brahman, controlled by mode of ignorance, turns into matter. Where it's very clear that Asray, that material energy takes the Asray of Supreme Lord, control of the Supreme Lord. So as control or difference in both the cases, this word defeats the Mayavad philosophy. Thank you. So Premananda Gopinath.
Prabhuji, this point, Ashraya means Maya has taken full Ashraya. Ashraya means taking shelter, and Apashraya means taking full shelter. So Maya also, Cha. So Maya also has taken full, Maya means here energy. Internal energy and external energy, both considered here Maya. Mayam Chachat Apashrayam, I consider. Can you please correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah. Right. So complete shelter. And actually speaking, that's why we say that there's no difference between external and internal energy for the Supreme Lord. Because for the Supreme Lord, whether it is external energy or the internal energy, both are under control of the Lord. For us, it is different because external energy controls us, makes us suffer, whereas internal energy connects us to the Lord and gives us enjoyment. So that's why for us there is difference, for Lord there is no difference. According to Mayavadis also there is no difference. For us also there is no difference, but there is a different meaning. From our point of view, there is difference. From Lord's point of view, there is no difference. Shankarites say, when you realize that you are God, there will be no difference. But main problem is they don't believe in energetic. They don't believe there is a person behind the energy. So when it comes to creation after Pradhan, our philosophy and their philosophy is similar. We don't disagree. But understanding that apart from Pradhan, there is a Brahman, and there is a world and personalities beyond Brahman, there we have serious differences. So there's a difference between the Mayavadis and Vaishnavas. Okay, so now we'll go to text 5. We have less time remaining now. Yaya sammohito jiva.
Yaya sammohito jiva.
Atmanam trigunatmakam.
Atmanam trigunatmakam.
Paro api manute anartham.
Paro api manute anartham.
Tatkritam cha abhipadyate.
Tatkritam cha abhipadyate.
Please read translation as well as purpose.
Due to the external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by science. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditioned state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is
aloof.
The Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by the external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is a remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of illusory energy. The surrendering process is complete by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the supreme conditioned souls, conditioned souls are engaged in his transcendental loving service.
They get taste.
They get the taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only are they gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord and by himself as a spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as a super soul Paramatma becomes a spiritual master, and from without, he becomes a spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiator, spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka.
Thank you. That's all. So this is something which we wanted to focus on, that ultimately external energy is also under the control of the Lord, because ultimately the purpose of internal energy, external energy, everything is same only. And what is that? The living entity should take shelter of the Lord and reestablish one's relationship with the Lord. That's all. So the purpose is same. Then so is it that Lord makes us suffer through his external energy? No. It is we who choose to be influenced by the external energy. So many times now one very famous question comes is, how if we knew that so much sufferings are there, why did we come to material world? But then we find in this world also, there are places where people themselves go to suffer, although they know they are going to suffer. Can you give some examples for that?
Wine shop.
No, that smoking can cause cancer, still they smoke.
Yeah.
Mentioned on the
Wine,
topic.
Wine shop.
wine shop.
There are many other places which are not like where even devotees go. Devotees may go, I'm saying it's permitted. Okay, Diksha.
Prabhuji, like in a few of the other classes you have mentioned that social media is so harmful. Still, one WhatsApp status or we just get carried away and the time is lost. So we know that there is a problem and still we get into it.
Yeah, so we have WhatsApp status and mobiles don't waste so much time. And then sometimes you've seen like people, they go in this Ferris wheel. Especially when the wheel is very big. What is audible or visible from the wheel? What do people do there? Those who are sitting in the wheel.
Scream out.
Yeah, they scream out like anything because they're suffering. When the people go down, everybody cries like anything. But despite that, it is people who purchase ticket and sit in that Ferris wheel. Similarly, many times in the theater, there are horror movies. People purchase ticket and go there and become terrified, and they have all sort of uneasy experiences. So similarly, it's living entity who has chosen to accept Maya because he has a hope that I'll enjoy. So it's not that Lord has forced Maya upon us. We have accepted that Maya, we have accepted the body, mind, senses, because we have hope that we will enjoy through them. Although we know there is accompanied or there is a lot of suffering accompanied with that enjoyment. So it is we who choose. And also Prabhupada is pointing out about that how this verse also defeats Mayavad philosophy. Because it is Jiva who is bewildered by Maya. And in the previous verse it was given that Maya is under full control of the Lord. So it's not that there's no difference between Jiva and Lord, and one day Maya will come under the control of the Lord. Sorry, one day Jiva will become Lord and Maya will come under control. It's not like that. Jiva is always subordinate and Lord is always above Maya. So in this way, he saw the problems now. Of course, he was seeing problems even at the beginning in chapter number 4. And now he analyzed the problem. Now, after analyzing the problem, now he sees the solution in verse number 6. So we'll go to text number 6 now. So just a minute. I saw it. So these all are famous verses. You can repeat this also. Anotapasamam sakshat.
Anotapasamam sakshat.
Madoksaje.
Bhakti yoga madhoksaje.
Lokasya janato vidvams.
Lokasya janato vidvams.
Chakre satvat sammitam.
Chakre satvat sammitam.
Please read the translation. This is a famous verse worth remembering.
The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth.
So, lokas ajanato, people are not aware of that. And how to remove the miseries of the life, which are explained in text number 5, because of Maya. That's why Chakre, Vyasadeva, what he did? Satvat Samhitam. He wrote this, compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. So if one is miserable, what to do? Read Srimad Bhagavatam. Very simple. So such a simple solution. Please read the purport also.
Purport by his divine grace. So Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unity of the personality of Godhead includes his parts and parcels also. He saw, therefore, his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also, and he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last, he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of the material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on the devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth.
So ultimately, when Lord is satisfied, Lord reveals himself because he is not bound. So that's why bhakti is a path of grace. But even just by chanting the name, fame, pastimes of the Lord, one at least get rid of the material miseries. So that happens immediately. Like we find this process in NOD also. Sadhana bhakti, then bhav bhakti, then prema bhakti. Now Krishna prema may come by the mercy of the Lord. But at least even by sadhana bhakti, there is a klesa agni. The klesas of the life, they are removed. So that is the natural way in which klesas get mitigated. Yes, Chitta Hari, Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, I was thinking on the same point. Even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation. So I thought Kleshagni, the point you mentioned, that was clarified.
Yes. So Sandrananda Visesatma Sri Krishna Akarsani. Sri Krishna Akarsani means Krishna is pleased and he'll be attracted by our practice of devotional service. But at least Klesagni is there. That itself is like quite a big achievement for all other practitioners. Because all other practitioners, whether it is Karmi Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, they are more worried about how to get rid of the miseries. But that is like first thing which happens for the devotees. The miseries of the life are removed. Not external, as we were discussing before, but one transcends. One becomes satisfied in the Lord. So that is the result. So in this way, Vyasadeva in his meditation, he saw everything as Prabhupada had mentioned. So he saw Amsas, Gunavataras, all the energies of the Lord like Vimala, Utkarsini, etc. Different energies of the Lord, internal energies of the Lord. External energy of the Lord is behind the Lord. And now what he is doing it? Now he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, which explains about all these different Amsas, Gunavataras, internal energy, external energy, as well as the complete Supreme Lord in 10th canto, which is practically 1/3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. 10th canto and 11th canto, which exclusively talks about Krishna. So he compiled Bhagavatam, which removes all the miseries. Yes, Adbhuta Devakru.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for this nicely explaining. So may you please explain the line that the mechanical chanting and hearing will not have effect and it solely depends on the mercy of the Lord. But in the starting verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that Lord immediately comes in a person's heart when one have a desire to hear it and when he actually hears Srimad Bhagavatam. So
yeah.
So may you please explain this one?
So we were discussing the same thing. As far as God is concerned, we are always in contact with the Lord. Because ultimately energy and energetic are not different. And Paramatma is also the closest personality to the living entity. But what awaits is certainly realization. So what happens is, as we practice devotion service, the beginning stages of sadhana, like sadhana bhakti, and even you can say to some degree bhav bhakti also. So that can be achieved by one's endeavor, but prema bhakti is bestowed by Lord's grace. So only when Lord is pleased by the efforts of the living entities, then he becomes available. Somebody remember the verse which Prabhupada quoted many places, just to prove that.
Swayameva Sfuratiyada, that is?
Yeah. So that is one verse. And also the another verse is Nayam Atma Pravachena Labhyo Na Medeya Na Bahuna Srutena Yame Ve Sarvanate Tene Labhyas Tasya Satma Mirte Chanusam, which he quotes. That Nayam Atma Pravachena Labhyo, one cannot get Atman Paramatma, Lord, Supreme Lord, or the realization of Atma, by pravachan, by giving baby lectures. Na medhya, not by one's intelligence. Na brahuna sutena, not by reading a lot of scriptures, shrutis. Then how can one obtain the Lord? Yam eves vernate te labes tasya savata gurute tanusam. When Lord wants to reveal himself, Lord reveals himself. And in one of the verses of Bhagavad Gita, Chakravarti Pal gives a very beautiful example. He gives example of a child who cannot know the activities of his father until father tells him. I'll give another example for that. Like once what happened is, I went to one uncle's house. So he had a son, very small son was there. So he was very carefully scrolling through all the photographs, marriage photographs. And I don't know the culture today. In those days, people would keep marriage photographs or marriage albums as if it is some scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, no, like very careful. And he was scrolling down through all the photographs one by one, one by one, one by one. And when the whole album ended, he kept it like this and he started crying like anything. And father said, I got married and you are unhappy. He said, yes, I am unhappy because you had such a big marriage. You never called me for the marriage. You called everyone. So many people are there, everywhere. There, everyone is there in the album. And I am your son and you never called me for your marriage. And because he was a small child, father had a tough time to make him understand. If I was not married, how would you come? So what I learned from there is that activities of the father, especially before the child is born, can't be understood unless until father reveals it to the child. Similarly, unless until Lord reveals himself, one can't know. So one can know that I am not matter by one's endeavor. But one cannot do the spiritual activities of the spiritual world unless until Lord reveals it. So that's why bhakti is a path of revelation, bhakti is a path of grace. One cannot achieve and receives in bhakti. So only when we please Guru and Krishna by our efforts and they become pleased, then they bestow that prema bhakti within us. Whereas so that's why Prabhupada says that the mechanical process of hearing and chanting. So that's why hearing and chanting should not be mechanical. It has to be done heartfelt. We should cry and beg for the mercy of the holy name, mercy of the acharyas and mercy of the Supreme Lord. So only when they are merciful, they will bestow us with the grace. And there is no other hope for us. So that's what we learn from acharyas also. So many bhajans of acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Nilakanta Das Thakur, they cry for mercy. Because bhakti is a path of grace. It's not just a mechanical process. Okay, that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So side benefits are always visible, Klesha Agni, but higher benefits, we have to depend on Krishna. Yes, Premananda Mukinath. Prema Gopinath, you had a hand raise?
Yes, Prabhuji. To explain this here with you, Prabhuji, Krishna Harichitta Das Prabhuji told some sloka. I forgot to note it. Can I get it again, please?
Okay. I was quoting another verses. Nayam Atma Pravachinna Labhyo.
No, before that he told something. You told this, but he told.
Sivan Mukhe Jivadu Swami Vispurtiyata.
Thank you.
So that's the verse he quoted. Okay, now we will text 7. So this is also worth memorizing. This is also important sloka. Yassam vai sruyamanayam.
Yasya vai sruyamanayam.
Krishne parama purushe.
Krishne parama purushe.
Bhaktir utpadyate pumsa.
Bhaktir utpadyate
pumsa.
Moha bhayapaha.
Shoka moha bhayapaha.
Please read the translation.
Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness.
So, yassam vesruyamanayam, by hearing, oral reception. Krishna parampuruse.
Yes.
Now, feeling of the love for the Supreme Lord, Krishna Puri Parase, Bhaktir Utpadate Pumsam. So, bhakti for the Supreme Lord is generated in the heart. And what is the immediate effect? Sokh, moh, bhaya, apaha. Sokh, lamentation, moh, illusion, and bhaya, all three of them are removed. So generally, Sokh is for the past. Oh, I could have done this little bit here and there. Then this would have not happened, that would have not happened. Especially we'll find old people many times, they have a fight. Once I was seeing two couples, husband and wife. Now they may be like a grandfather's age, 70 plus. And still I was seeing they were lamenting like anything. The husband was saying, 50 years back I did a big mistake. What was the mistake? I married a girl like you. I had a opportunity to marry so many girls. My whole life became a hell. And then wife was saying, I did also a mistake 50 years back by marrying you. And they were like, no, lamenting. So the more of a lamentation of the past. And then whatever we have today, that creates illusion. We think I'll enjoy it. So Sokh is for the past, Moh is for the present, and future creates bhaya. What will happen next? But when devotion service of the Lord is established in the heart, one gets rid of all these three miseries of past, present, and future, because one gets established in eternity. So that's why just by practicing devotion service, one gets rid of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Sokha moha bhayapaha. So the power of hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it happens. So that's why bhakti is very simple, just here. Okay, we can read the purport also.
Yes, sir. Purport by His Divine Grace. There are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep sleep. One can protect himself from the hands of the enemy while awake. But while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from three material pangs. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. He is after the mirage of illusory things, and he is always afraid of his supposed enemy. These are the primary symptoms of material disease, and it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And as soon as this is effected, the symptoms of the material disease disappear. So Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead, and in this statement, the all-perfect personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is clearly confirmed. The ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. Love is a word which is often used in relation with a man and woman, and love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusa, or the supreme male personality. Thus, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is something like that between the male and the female. Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate.
This was only, yeah, there's a very big purport. So we find that simply by hearing. Now that doesn't mean we should not speak. That means even by hearing there is such a great effect. Like in 10th canto, there is a verse. Vasudeva krita prashna purusam stinpo natihi vaktaram prakshakam srotem tatpada salilam yatha. Like by taking bath in Ganga, one gets purified. Similarly, Sukadeva Goswami praised Parikshit Maharaj by saying that you have asked questions regarding Krishna. So three people become purified: Vaktaram, Prakshakams, and Srotem. Vaktaram is speaker. So he is the first one who gets most purified. Then comes Prakshakams. Prakshakams is one who has asked questions. And the third one who got purified is Srotems, those who hear. So even they get purified. Yes, Premanand Gopinath.
Tatpadam Salilam Jatha. As the Ganga river is purifying the three words that the meaning says. The Ganga river is purifying the three words. The same way, three types of people will be benefited.
Thank you. And this hierarchy is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says most purified person is one who answers. Because he has to be very, very attentive. He can't he can't escape. And then second one is Prakshakams, one who is asked. And the third one is Srotrams. Srotrams is one who, people in general who hear it. So in this way, all these three people who are involved in Harikatha, they get purified. Yes, like three worlds are there, three people get purified. Thank you. So beautiful verse. Yes, Chitta, Hare Krishna.
As this verse says, Prabhu, upper, middle, and lower planetary system. So upper means like the speaker or the preacher, and middle one is like inquirer, and the lower one, people in general who are listening. So in that, in that hierarchy, they will be purified. Thank you.
Thank you. So beautiful points from the same verse. So Bhagavatam, that is how Bhagavatam is filled with all these three things. So anybody who speaks Bhagavatam, ask questions about Bhagavatam in a Bhagavatam class, and those who attend, all of them get purified. So we don't have to go to Ganga. Just by hearing Bhagavatam, we get purified. And suddenly we have opportunity, we should go to Ganga, but every day we can take bath in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that opportunity is there. Yeah. So in this way, Vyasadeva, when he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, now he has realized that ultimately devotion service is going to give me satisfaction of the heart. And he already wrote about Brahman a lot in Vedic scriptures. So when he sees that his son Sukadeva Goswami is already Brahman realized, so then he wanted his son to get a higher satisfaction, not just the satisfaction of Brahman. And that is why he makes Sukadeva Goswami as his disciple. Because whatever is best, Father wants to give that to the Son. Father wants to share the best of his realization. Father wants to give best of the enjoyment to his Son. So that is why Vyasdev, he teaches Srimad Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami. And that comes in the further verses. So please read 8th and 9th translation.
The great sage Vyasdev, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, was already engaged in self-realization. Text 9. Sri Shaunak asked Suta Goswami, Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature?
Yeah. So in this way, we find that Vyasdev, because he was relishing that Krishna prema. So he wanted to share that bliss with his son. So son was already satisfied, but Vyasdev knew that this Brahman realization didn't give me satisfaction. It's devotion service which gave me satisfaction. And that's why he taught Srimad Bhagavatam to his own son. Now certainly Sonak Rishi is asking same question to make it more clear that he was self-realized, then why did he teach him Bhagavatam? Why to read such a big literature when one is already self-realized? To highlight it even more. Okay, Nitai Nateswarpur.
Yes, Prabhuji. I have one question here, Prabhuji. In this verse 8, it's mentioned that the great sage Vyasdev, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, so the actual meaning of it is anukramya, by correction and repetition. Why was it required to revise the Srimad Bhagavatam? Is there any clarity given on that topic, that after he compiled it, the revision was done by himself or by somebody else? Is there any clarification given on that point?
So I have read Prabhupada purports and I have read this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur purports. So there we find there's no highlight about this point as such. So Chakravarti Pad, what he writes is, first Vyasadev had made an abbreviated scripture out of the bhakti. That means he wrote in an abbreviated form. I'll share with all of you. Just give me a minute. So you can yourself read from Chakravarti Pad. Your question is answered here. First, Vyas had made an abbreviated scripture about bhakti, the one which I am highlighting. But on the advice of Narada, he rearranged it. Okay. So Mata, you are also asking this question. It is answered here. So he wrote in an abbreviated way, but now he rearranged Anukramya, giving more prominence to bhakti to Krishna. So that means it was already there. He had written in abbreviated form, but now he rearranged it and made bhakti as a prominence to bhakti. So that's why the word Anukramya is used here. Okay. Is Premananda Gopinath? You have to unmute yourself too. You are, I think so.
Sorry. 1.2.2, it is been mentioned. Vasudev, fearing separation from him, cried out, "Oh my son." So the moment Sukadeva Goswami came out, he left the home, and Vasudev was going behind him, according to 1.2.2. Now here, he is teaching to his son Sukadeva Goswami. So when it should be, what is the time period and when it will happen? Can you please brief? Can you say?
Okay. What we understand is, because like Bhagavatam also is not chronological. It's not chronological at all. It's like episodes are written here and there. So it's not that it is written. So what we understand here is that first he compiled and later on this episode of Sukadeva Goswami appearing came. Because Bhagavatam is not at all chronological. Even in the, you can find in the Krishna Leela also. Even the Krishna Leela, some of the Leelas happened before and some Leelas happened after. So even in 10th canto, things are not given chronologically. Sukadeva Goswami points out. Now I don't exactly remember the pastimes. I think Trinavat pastime and the next one. So some chronological difference is there. There, Vishwanath Tagore points out. So Bhakti, it is Bhagavatam is not chronological. So what we understand is first he compiled it and later on this episode of Sukadeva Goswami.
Thank you.
Yes, Radha Patru.
Prabhuji, I read this thing in Burijan Prabhu's commentary. So he writes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered the Bhagavatam the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra because it was written by the same author in his maturity. In Bhagavatam 1.7.8, Kritvanukramya, by correction and repetition, indicates that Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam when he compiled the Puranas. So both of them were compiled simultaneously. However, the information compiled was in abbreviated form. Later, after having been instructed by Narada and experiencing his own realizations, Vyasadeva revised the Bhagavatam.
Thank you. So this clarifies. Because sometimes Bhagavatam is also comes in the category of Puranas in mode of goodness. So we see in the Puranas in mode of goodness, Srimad Bhagavatam is there. So that means when he created wrote 18 Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam was there in that time. And later on he revised it after hearing from Narada Muni. So now it's very clear. Thank you, Radha Bhakti. So good discussion. Now we'll go to text 10, which is like very famous verse.
Text 9 we left, Prabhuji. Text 9.
Text 9, okay. So just a minute. So text 9, actually we read the translation. So
Sri Saunaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Sutta Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature?
Yeah. So already we were discussing that he himself got satisfied by Krishna Prem, and that's why he wrote it. But now Saunaka Rishi want to make it very specific to understand that he was Brahman realized. Why did he take a trouble to hear Bhagavatam? And this is the verse which was spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, giving 64 different explanations. And he explained the 64 explanations again to Sanatana Goswami. Now those who want, they can go through the whole chapter of Sanatana Shiksha. But we'll read it only in concise. Suta vacha Atma Ramasya Muneyo Nirgrantha Urukrame Purvanti Ahetu Kim Bhaktim Tam Bhuta Guno Harihi. Please read the translation.
All different varieties of Atma Ramas, those who take pleasure in Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls.
Yeah. So this verse practically defeats Mayavad's philosophy like anything. Atma Rama Samunyo, those who are self-satisfied sages, they're not even aware that we are these bodies. Nirgrantha, they don't have any granthi, they have no knot of attachment to this material world. Api urukurame kurvanti ahtukim bhakti. So even those personalities, api, what they do? Kurvanti urukurame kurvanti ahtukim bhakti. So they also perform devotional service to Lord Urukrama, who performs great activities. Why Ittam Bhuta Guru Hari? Because Lord Hari has transcendental qualities by which he attracts even the Atma Ramas. So we find in the case of Sukdev Goswami. Sukdev Goswami got attracted by which qualities of Lord Hari?
Personal.
Yeah.
Jyoti.
Is it Bhakta Vasalyata, like Kamva Dayalu Sharanam Bhajam?
Yes. Compassion of the Lord. Yeah. First was that compassion. Second, one more quality.
Beauty.
Yes.
Beauty.
Beauty. Yes. So first one was the compassion. Now this Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam Jigham Sayapayadapi Asadvi Lebe Gatim Dhatrimuchitam Tatuannam Kamva Dayalum Saranam Brajema. So Aho Bakiyam, O Shashtra Bakasur. So Stana Kalukutam, she smeared her breast with Kalukuta. Jigham Sapya Apayatapi Asadvi. So she came with a desire to kill Krishna. But Levig Vatim Dvatrim Visitam Tatvanam. But he gave him the transcendental position of Dhatri, nurse. Kamva Dayalum Saranam. Where will I get such a merciful person? So there was one verse which attracted him. And second was beauty. Barha Pidam Natavarapu Karnayo Karnikaram Vibratavasa Kanakakapisam Vajayantim Chamalam Randranveno Radar Sudaya Purayan Gopa Vrinde Vindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravisadgita Kirti. This is another verse. Barha Pidam Natavarapu. He's wearing a peacock feather on his head. Natavarapu, dressed like a dramatic actor. Karnay or Karnikaram, and in his ear he wears this Karnikar flower. Vibratavasa, Kanakakapisam. So he's having the dress of yellow color, and Vajantita Vala means he wearing forest flower garland which comes up to his knees. Randran Venon Adar Sudaya, Punayan Gopavinda. And he plays on his Venu and he puts nectar of his lips in one of the holes of Venu. And this Venu acts like a fountain, and this Adharamrit, the nectar of Krishna's lips, spreads in whole of Vrindavan. It drenches everyone with the showers of this nectar. Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravasad Git Kirti. So Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam. And the beauty of Vrindavan is that Lord doesn't wear footwear there. He walks on Vrindavan with his own feet. That's why one speck of dust of Vrindavan is more valuable than the entire property of even Vaikuntha. Because in Vaikuntha, Lord wears footwear. In Vrindavan, he puts his own feet. So Vrindavan has the fortune of being marked by the various signs on the lotus feet of the Lord. Sanjette Bhagavatasthranad Vindam Vajrakus Dasaru Lanchanadam Uttung Rakta Velasan Nakachakravala Josnabir Ahat Mahadranandakaram. So all different signs are there in the lotus feet of the Lord. So Vrindavan has that fortune. There's a no cow, calf, gopa would ever step on the lotus feet marks of Krishna. So of Vrindavan. Because there's such a decoration on the land of Vrindavan. So when he heard about such a beautiful personality, he became attracted. How did Chatuskumaras become attracted? They were also Atmaramas. By what quality did they get attracted?
Beauty of the Lord.
The fragrance.
Tulsi. Scent. Fragrance of the Tulsi.
Yes, fragrance of the Tulsi. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda kanjalka misra tulsi makaranda vayu antaragata savarena chakarate sam sanchodam aksharadusam apichitta tanvo tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda kunjalka misra tulsi. So this is the focus. The tulsi leaves which are smeared with sandalwood pulp. They were on the lotus feet of the Lord. And what happened is the makaranda vayu, the breeze coming from the tulsi leaves entered in their nostrils. And then chakarate sam. Suddenly they felt that enlightenment of bhakti in their heart. Sancho nakthadapi chittanvo. And then they developed that devotion. Of course, Chakravarti Pad writes that the main cause of devotion was that they became attracted by the humility of Jai Vijay. That they cursed Jai Vijay. Jai Vijay had all power to counter curse them and not get affected by the curse. But when Jai Vijay fell at the feet of Chatuskumaras, they were feeling so ashamed. They said, we curse the associates of the Lord, but they are so humble that instead of counter cursing us, they are begging forgiveness from us. We want to become like them. We want to become devotees like them. So that's why when Vaishnavas exhibit their Vaishnava qualities, it inspires other people to accept Krishna consciousness. So that's why these are called the Abhushan of Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava qualities of the devotees. And that is how they become attracted. So all these Atmaramas became attracted. So now because we have 2 minutes, we will not go through the purport. So beautiful purport. Maybe devotees can go through it later. Now you can read the 11th verse.
Srila Sukadeva Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus, he underwent the study of this great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah. So he was not just like a transcendently powerful person, but he also was dear to the devotees because he himself was a great devotee, or later on became a great devotee. So he was attracted by the beauty and compassion of the Lord, and he asked from these woodcutters sent by Vyasadeva. So we know the whole episode that after appearing, after being assured by Krishna, my dear Sukadeva Goswami, don't worry, you will not be conquered by Maya. He comes out, starts going to the forest, and the woodcutter, basically when they were not woodcutters, they were like disciples of Vyasadeva. They speak these 2 verses which we quoted. So then suddenly Sukadeva Goswami becomes inspired, and then he wants to know, from where did you hear these verses? How can I hear more about this personality about whom these 2 verses are quoted? And then they say, ultimately we heard from your father Vyasadeva. So that inspires him to go back to Vyasadeva and hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is how he undergoes the study of this great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam. Hari Hari. Premananda Gopinath.
Prabhuji, I have a small doubt. Narada Muni, about Narada Muni, when did he get this Veena? Previously, when he was the son of the maidservant, that time when he was meditating, finally mother died and he went to northern side. He was tired, had drank water. That time he meditated. So that time Lord gave Veena, or the next birth when he was son of Brahma, he got Veena.
Okay, what we understand it is like later on. And I think Prabhupada has written in one purport. Jeev Goswami quotes from Agni Purana Sampuran that he got from Lord Vishnu himself. I read it in purport. I am not able to.
Yes, in Srimad Bhagavatam it is mentioned that Veena has been given to Lord Vishnu. But Veena has been given by Lord Vishnu. But Lord, when it has been given? The next kalpa or the previous kalpa?
So what we understand should be next kalpa, because in that kalpa, the only time he got darshan of the Lord was during that time when he got tears in his eyes. And Lord said that unless until your devotion service is incomplete, it becomes complete, you can't get me darshan again. So if he can't get darshan again, why the question of getting Veena? So what we understand from that is it must be in the when son of Brahma.
Thank you.
Yes, Diksha Ahujamati.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask regarding the Atma Ram verse. Prabhuji, can you help to summarize this verse, because this is the most important verse of Bhagavatam and as well as in Chaitanya teachings of Sanatana Goswami. So here Prabhupada mentions word by word. So can you help in this?
Yeah, I could have done that, but only thing is that now we have, it's already 7. So what we can do is, so I'll just tell.
We can, like Maharaj used to give that, like if devotees permit, like if you have time with 10 minutes more, if you can give, because today is the last of this unit.
So we can, we'll go through the purport. Maybe we can go through the at least first paragraph of the purport.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this Atmarama Sloka very vividly before his chief devotee Sanatana Goswami. He points out 11 factors in this sloka, namely Atmarama, Munayaha, Nirgantha, Appi, Cha, Urukrama, Kurvanti, Ahitukim, Bhaktim, Ithambhuta Gunaha, and Hari. According to the Vishwa Prakasa Sanskrit Dictionary, there are 7 synonyms for the word Atmarama, which are as follows: Brahman, the absolute truth; body, mind, endeavor, endurance, intelligence, and personal habits. The word Munaiha refers to 1. Those who are thoughtful; 2. Those who are grave and silent; 3. Ascetics; 4. The persistent; 5. The mendicants; 6. The sages; 7. The saints. The word Nirgantha conveys these ideas: 1. Who is liberated from nescience; 2. One who has no connection with the scriptural injunctions, that is, who is free from the obligation of the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures like ethics, Vedas, philosophy, psychology, metaphysics. In other words, the fools, illiterate, urchins, etc., who have no connection with regulative principles. And 3rd, a capitalist, and also 4th, one who is penniless. According to Sabdakosha dictionary, the affix ni is used in the sense of certainty, counting, building, and forbiddance. And the word grantha is used in the sense of wealth, thesis, vocabulary, etc. The word urukrama means the one whose activities are glorious. Krama means step. This word urukrama specifically indicates the Lord's incarnation as Vamana, who covered the whole universe by immeasurable steps. Lord Vishnu is powerful, and his activities are so glorious that he has created the spiritual world by his internal potency and the material world by his external potency. By his all-pervading features, he is everywhere present as the supreme truth, and in his personal feature, he is always present in his transcendental abode of Golok Vrindavan, where he displays his transcendental pastimes in all variegatedness. His activities cannot be compared to anyone else, and therefore the word Urukrama is just applicable to him only. According to Sanskrit verbal arrangement, Kurbandi refers to doing things for someone else. Therefore, it means that the Atmaramas render devotional service unto the Lord not for personal interest, but for the pleasure of the Lord, Urukrama. Hetu means causa. There are many causes for one's sense satisfaction, and they can be chiefly classified as material enjoyment, mystic powers, and liberation, which are generally desired by progressive persons. As far as material enjoyments are concerned, they are innumerable, and the materialists are eager to increase them more and more because they're under the illusory energy. There is no end to the list of material enjoyments, nor can anyone in the material universe have all of them. As far as the mystic powers are concerned, there are 8 in all, such as to become the minutest in form, to become weightless, to have anything one desires, to lord it over the material nature, to control over other living beings, to throw earthly globes in outer space, etc. These mystic powers are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. The forms of liberation are 5 in number. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above mentioned personal benefit. I request somebody's mic is on, maybe off please. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above mentioned personal benefits. And the powerful personality of God as Sri Krishna can be fully satisfied by such unalloyed devotees, free from all sorts of desire for personal benefit. Unalloyed devotion service of the Lord progresses in different stages. Practice of devotion service in the material field is of 81 different qualities, and above such activities is the transcendental practice of devotion service, which is one and is called sadhana bhakti. When unalloyed practice of sadhana bhakti is matured into transcendental love for the Lord, the transcendental loving service of the Lord begins gradually developing into 9 progressive stages of loving service under the headings of attachment, love, affection, feeling, affinity, adherence, following, ecstasy, and intense feelings of separation. The attachment of an inactive devotee develops up to the stage of transcendental love of God. Attachment of an active servitor develops up to the stage of adherence, and that for a friendly devotee develops up to the stage of following. And the same is also the case for parental devotees. Devotees in conjugal love develop ecstasy up to the stage of intense feelings of separation. These are some of the features of unalloyed devotion service of the Lord. Further mentions in matter of devotion. Should I continue, Guru?
So like that, I think it will take another 5 minutes if we do it.
Yes, I'll continue, no problem. So according to Hari,
yeah, I think maybe devotees can read separately.
Yes.
Basically, what happens is, Lord Chaitanya has explained all these different meanings of the words, and then using those combinations, he brings out 64 different meanings. So only Ittam Bhut Hari, Gudo Hari, these 3 words were remaining. So he takes different words from root meaning, and then he combines each one of them, makes different permutation combinations, and he brings out 64 different meanings, which were different from the 9 meanings of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. But basically, why does he quote it? That perfected people in your school who get Brahman realization, even those people are attracted to devotion service. That was a prime reason. Why did he quote it? Why did he speak to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? That was the main thing. So we don't find devotees turning into Brahmavadis. But we find so many examples of Brahmavadis, Brahman realized people turning into devotees. That proves that devotion service is better. So that is how.
Prabhuji, how do we know that you had mentioned that how the people in the school of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were also attracted?
Means school, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was follower of Shankaracharya, for them Brahman realization is the highest. But this verse says that even those who are Brahman realized also get attracted to devotion service. Ittam Bhut Gudo Hari. So Guna, the transcendental Guna of the Lord, attracts even Atma Ramas. Or I think you want to understand the meaning once. So Atma Ramasa Munyo, those who are Atma Ram Munis, Nirgranthi, they have no material attachments. But Api Urukrame Kurvanti Ahatukin. But they also practice devotion service of Lord Urukrama. Why Ittam Bhut Gudo Hari? Because they become attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Lord. So that was the essence.
Yes, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, in the paragraph we read, the attachment of an inactive devotee develops up to the stage of transcendental love of God. What are these devotees mentioned of inactive devotee?
Inactive devotee means Santaras devotee.
And Prabhuji, here it is mentioned different stages. Material field is of 81 different qualities. Practice of devotional service in material field
is of 81 different qualities, and above such qualities is a transcendental practice of devotional service, which is called sadhana bhakti. So what is this mention of 81 different qualities? This last question.
Yeah, that will be revealed in due course of time when you go through third canto. There are 81 types of devotional service in 3 modes. So that will come in third canto. And pure devotional service above all of them. So that devotional service in 3 modes. So 3 into 3, 9, 9 into 9, 81. It becomes like that. So 3 types of practitioners are there. Then there is bhakti in goodness, passion, ignorance. And then there are 9 Sravanam, Kirtanam, etc. So 9 to 9, 81. So 81 types of devotional service. But pure devotional service is above that.
Okay. Prabhuji, sadhana bhakti is beyond that.
Yes, sadhana bhakti.
Under pure.
Even sadhana bhakti is pure devotional service.
Pure devotion, yes.
We can be impure, but if we aspire to become pure, like Prahlad Maharaj. So he was praying that Kamana Amriti Samno Bhaktastu Vrenamara. My dear Lord, whatever mental desires are there within my heart, please remove them. Then it is pure devotional service. So even sadhana bhakti is pure devotional service. Yes, Radha Patma. Last question. Yeah.
Prabhuji, we have a classic example of one devotee in Mayapur. So he was youth preacher and he collected Lakshmi for Shruti Bhavan. And then he wanted to defeat Buddhism. So he started reading books on Buddhist philosophy. And finally he left ISKCON and became a Buddhist sannyasi. So we have examples of devotees going back to Punar Mushika Bhava. So it is very, very dangerous.
No, the problem is many times our devotees, they preach but they don't read our own scriptures properly. So while writing NOD, Rupa Goswami has given blessings. That like a volcano, when it is there in between the ocean, it cannot affect the environment. Where it is surrounded by ocean. Anyone who is surrounded by Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he cannot be affected by other philosophy. Many of our devotees either go to Radha Kund or they go to different places. The main problem is that they don't read our own scriptures properly. If we read our own scriptures properly, we will not be devoted. Just because many times what happens is they are preachers doesn't mean they study. I was also a youth preacher, I have experience. Many times you find devotees even doing preaching for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But our devotees don't read Prabhupada books properly. So that is the unfortunate thing. So then what happens is then they become deviated. But if we read our books properly, there's no problem as such. Buddhism is same as Mayavad.
Yes.
What Buddhist says that your all elements, 24 elements will merge into 24 elements. But so actually saying you lose your existence. Shankaracharya also says the same thing. There's no difference between Pradhan and Brahman. They are same. So you lose your existence after that. But we talk about realm beyond that. So those who know all these details, technicalities, they will not become deviated. Many times some devotees become very attracted to this. The recording is going on, but we can speak because we are speaking devotees. Like Brahma Kumaris people are there. And I asked them, why you became attracted? Oh, Prabhu, they speak such a nice philosophy. What is that philosophy? मैं शांत आत्मा हूँ, मैं प्रेममयी आत्मा हूँ. अरे whole Bhagavad Gita beginning is that only. मैं शांत आत्मा हूँ, प्रेममयी आत्मा हूँ. I have nothing to do with gross body, I have nothing to do with subtle body. You don't read your books. You are reading, you just hear from them and you become attracted to them. But that like basically given in our scriptures. So whatever relief Buddhism, Jainism and all other things give, it is available in our place also.
Prabhu, just now you explained this 81. Just I need a repetition from you. Sravanam Kirtanam is Navada Bhakti into Raja Sattva Tama Guna. So 9 into 3 is equal to 27. And 27 becomes 81. That how that, how 81 it became?
Okay, what I'll do is, what I'm also giving the next class, I'll tell you the exact purport of Vishwanath Thakur, where he is explained.
In the group, can you put rules? Can you place in the group?
I'm not there in the group. I'll send to some devotee.
Okay.
Then they'll put.
Okay, thank you.
Vishwanath Thakur has counted 81. everything is there in there.
Okay.
Hari. This will end here. Nandra.
Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hari.
Thank you so much, Raji.
Praise Anant Gaur Sundar Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Patitanam Pavanam.
Vaishnava Namo Namah.